that was absolutely terrible. Fastlane was that was a disaster on all fronts. This show, like leading up to Mania, I don't even know why they did this. They should have just went right into Mania from Elimination Chamber. At least Chamber was a decent pay per view. I said even like a good pay per view, not a really good one, but it was decent enough. But this show here, we have on the pre-show, Riddle defeated Ali. This was a little bit too coincidental that after the match, you have Ali getting turned on by his teammates. Right after he did like an interview with some dirt sheet, they asked him a question and he said like he'd like to develop his character further, which seems like a pretty reasonable request, when you're the leader of a faction. But now Retribution, they're done. They turned on him, they slammed him into the mat, and it's over. So you're probably not even going to see these guys again, and I kind of doubt you're even going to see Mustafa Ali again. I think he's just completely gone, because like where are they even going to go with him after this? You know how he was before this? Now you can only imagine what they're going to do now that they've taken away like his only role, his only moment really in the spotlight, if you want to even consider this spotlight. But isn't it a little coincidental that the moment he opened his mouth and said that he was unhappy with the way things were going, they just completely just ended his, storyline, if you want to call it that, even. So we start off on the main show with Nia Jax and Shayna Bazer defeating Sasha Banks and Bianca Belaire. And you thought like they were going to just give the belts to Sasha and Belaire because they have the match at Mania. You kind of would think like, well, you could have the tag champs wrestle each other. So it's not like this feud has been a total disaster enough, but they throw that idea out the window. You've got Sasha just doing 1,000 meteoras in here. A ridiculous spot where she's doing a hurricanrana to Nia Jax, but that's okay because Belaire drop kicked her in the back and it's momentum. This is like, you wouldn't even see Rey Mysterio hurricanraning somebody, and he weighs like more than double what she weighs. A 90-pound girl doing that to like a 350-pound, Samoan girl. Is that realistic? It looks totally ridiculous that they make like Sasha is almost like the Hulk Hogan of the women almost. That's like what I get from it, because like, how many belts have they given her? How many title runs have they given her? And she's shown every single time that she is not like a top tier women's wrestler, and very few of them are. But the most hilarious thing is, we get a schoolboy finish. That's it. There's an argument between Belaire and Sasha, and after it's over, we get Sasha slapping Belaire, pie faces her down, and then you've got Belaire then runs to the ropes as Sasha slides out. And instead of going through the ropes, she rather just point at the sign, because, that's more effective. Instead of getting revenge on someone who just humiliated you, on I was going to say TV, but on the network or Peacock, I guess, you're going to just point at the sign. Yeah, that's definitely going to solve your problems. Guys, this was a ridiculous finish. Just and so what are we going to have? Are they just going to have some pointless like women's tag match? Reggie was back. Yeah, where was he on SmackDown? They didn't even have him there. And now he just suddenly reappears with no explanation whatsoever. So that was just right there, was a terrible way to start off this show. And I will say this, at least the show was only, 2.5 hours, which was standard pay-per-view fare. And this is how every single minor show like this should be. No minor show has any business going over the 2.5 hour mark like this. So at least like on Elimination Chamber and here, we had a reasonable runtime. The fact that the show is shorter than Raw is just great. It's as long, can you imagine that this show went over, and we haven't even talked about why I did not like this show at all, but right there, the opener, usually if that's a bad match, you kind of know how everything else is going to go. So then we see Shane McMahon got injured in the most ridiculous way possible by throwing a knee at the Performance Center, into a kick pad, and he goes down and injures himself. First, they show a still shot of it, which just didn't make any sense. Like someone's there just taking snapshots of that, but then they show you the footage later on, and he falls backwards, and so now his match against Strowman is in question. Like anyone cares, but like this is a ridiculous thing. Like the way how they showed him get injured, could it not be like Strowman maybe attacks him in the back? No, it's got to be that he throws a lousy kick, and that just injures him, and he just falls down like a complete goof. Then we have this match between Big E and Apollo Crews, and I don't know what the fuck kind of finish this was supposed to be. I don't know why they didn't just go with a disqualification or something like that, or a double count out. Any type of finish would have been better than this. Even some lousy, schoolboy roll up or something like that, but this, we get what's supposed to be some type of confusing pin. It's like a botched pin, but it's like supposed to look botched. This just looked fucking horrible. From every angle that you look at this, they wanted to make it like, oh, Big E, just caught him in a pin, and then Crews gets up right away and starts beating the shit out of him. And, we're supposed to sit there and say like, oh, wow, that was great. Like, what is to be expected from that? Were they supposed to do the finish like that? Because I think it was, because we've seen finishes like that before. Oh, he just squeezed out a win. Yeah, that's real cute. No, that's really shitty. That looked just to the eye like the least artistic thing you could have done to end this. You would have been better off, like I said, doing a double count out, do a disqualification or something. Instead, like, who was not left stunned watching the finish to this match? You just like, what was the point of ending it that way? To make it look horrible on purpose? And I suppose that's what the reason was, but there you go. You got two matches in a row that were horrible, and it looked like this thing was going okay. There was nothing really wrong with it, but then it just like ends out of nowhere with this fucked up looking pin, and you get a beat down from Crews. He's yelling at him, and I stopped caring, the minute I saw that finish. Then we get this ridiculous backstage thing, which by the end of it, I was saying, what the fuck did I just watch? First of all, you have this guy called Average Joe, which I assume he's an NXT or 205 Live guy. Didn't recognize him. He's wearing like a red sweater, glasses, man bun. And then you've got Drew Gulak appearing out of nowhere. And like, if anyone had not been watching this show recently, you wouldn't even know who the hell this guy was if you didn't like read his tights, or I think it was on his jacket or something. Like, Gulak just appearing at random. Then we see Tozawa backstage. And this is like he's selling Old Spice. There's Old Spice set up, and this is supposed to be like, kind of like product placement. Oh, okay, fine. But they had to like work this into a skit. R-Truth is hiding inside the Old Spice display, and if you didn't watch this show and I'm describing it to you and you're listening to it, you're just honestly saying right now, like, what the fuck is this man talking about? Well, I didn't make this up. This was actually on the show. This is what I'm watching. So he's like, he's R-Truth is inside the display case, and he pushes his arm out. Then he's like peering over the top of it, and then he just like Tozawa like grabs his arm, pulls him through, and then the what's his name, Average Joe, just stumbles around and like lays on top of him and pins him, and it's like supposed to be an accident. But then R-Truth does a really shitty looking roll up. Like, there you get another roll up. Actually, I think this roll up looked a little bit better than the one that we saw in the Big E match, which is truly pathetic. He wins the 24/7 championship back. Then Tozawa, he confronts Average Joe. Average Joe rips open his shirt. It says something like Black Panther or Black Tiger or something, and I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be or what it meant. And if anyone knew what that meant in the comments, Tozawa like reacts to it comically and just like leaves him alone. And I'm just staring at my screen like, what? What the hell just happened here? That was like the most ridiculous skit I've ever seen. And it's not even funny. It was just really fucking retarded and stupid to watch. And, you would think after the first two matches, like honestly, anyone in the back, any agent or anyone must have watched those matches and realized that they were complete bombs, no matter how you look at it. So why would they go on with a ridiculous skit like this? And, people are going to be clicking off the network. But I'm here to review the show for you guys. So, I pressed on as hard as it was. And that's just what I did. And then we come across Braun Strowman. And now he's got to wrestle Elias because Shane, he wanted to be on the show with Shane. He wanted to be at WrestleMania. So Shane says he could come out with him. And, Elias starts doing the performance because Shane says, show us what you can do. And then he says, you're going to replace me in the match. So then he goes out there, Braun does, and it just proceeds to, pretty much just destroy Elias. Like, Elias gets in a little bit of offense, and, they just basically made a total goof out of Elias. The funny thing is that he said, like, he had an idea for WrestleMania. And this is the thing. It's been said that Elias is in the position he's in because he continuously tries to pitch ideas. And here he is on the show pitching an idea to Shane, and he's getting jobbed out like in the next segment, basically. This is almost the same thing with Mustafa Ali. Basically, they're making suggestions. They're honest to goodness, like reasonable suggestions. Like the one with Ali, like, let's explain why I'm leading this group, why these people are listening to me. Sounds pretty reasonable, wouldn't you say, considering there was absolutely no backstory. People just show up in masks one day. And then we've got the same thing going on with Elias. This is a very talented, the guy's got the ability. He's got the, he's got the promo skills. He's playing the guitar. He's got the in-ring skills. So you would think that this is a guy that has all the tools. He's got the size. He's got everything. And then on top of that, he's got Gunner there, who's just jacked as fuck. And, they're just totally wasting him. At least he didn't end up like the rest of the Forgotten Sons, which was basically on the unemployment line because those guys are gone. Gunner's the only one left. So you would think that maybe they might have something for him because they see that he was the star of that group. But no, he's just the lackey of Elias, and they're doing absolutely nothing with the guy here. And you don't get anything interesting with Shane or Braun here. Basically what it is, they made up a fake injury because they didn't want to have the match tonight. They're going to save it for WrestleMania. So instead they're going to torture us, with that at Mania. Instead of just getting it out of the way right here, getting it out of their systems. At least there was no slime. At least there was no hopscotch. You just had basically just a regular match. I mean, the match itself wasn't bad or anything, but like, did anyone tell them this is supposed to be a pay-per-view, the one right before Mania? So it might be, important to hype people, especially because, not only is it WrestleMania, but this is going to be the first WrestleMania, that's going to have the crowd back since last year didn't have it. So you would think that maybe they might put a little something extra into this because, hey, we're going to sell tickets now, right? So now it actually means something. No, it doesn't mean anything. So, it's just selling WrestleMania because it's a brand name, but we're still not going to give a fuck about building the show. And that was quite clear here. No care at all put into this. But maybe there's something on here, right? That might be half decent. It's possible. We see Riddle backstage with Naca Murphy. He's going on and on about a, scooter idea. It's like, okay, he plays the role pretty well, but it's kind of one note. They're not really going anywhere with this or doing anything interesting. It's just like, okay, Riddle, just say some random shit and then you're good. Like, that's basically what it is. And I mean, it's interesting that he has a character when a lot of other people on the roster, most people don't. So that is something to his credit. Is it me, or does anyone see that it's just ridiculous that this guy is doing a backstage segment here with Naca Murphy, and they didn't even he wasn't even technically on the show. He was on the pre-show, which no one watches, and he's the U.S. champion. And meanwhile, they've got the women opening the show with the tag belts. This is a guy that says he could beat Goldberg, he could beat Lesnar, and he's a pre-show guy. I mean, what does that say about him? How are we going to take the guy seriously with him being on a pre-show? And, so at least, like I'm saying, at least he's got that character to kind of tide him over. Because obviously you can't say that they're booking him very well. He's a U.S. champion doing a pre-show match when you have the women tag titles being defended instead, which are probably the least important belts. I think almost most people would agree on that. Maybe there's some, women's wrestling marks that say, oh, no, that's not true. They're prestigious belts. And, more power to you if you believe it, I guess. But, what's up next? We've got Rollins defeating Naca Murphy. I was just basically bored through this one. Just basically a bunch of moves. Rollins shouting 22 times, constantly through the whole thing. And, this match felt like it was 22 minutes, to be quite honest. And it probably was only like 10 minutes. But it was just, there's nothing more boring to me than seeing like either of these guys wrestle. There's just nothing there for me to enjoy. Rollins is just nothing he does in the ring connects with me. Neither does Naca Murphy. It's just the same boring kicks and just same old stuff from these guys. Rollins with the pushy suicide dive. Like I said, there's nothing here. He's coming out again with that ridiculous looking jacket that it looks almost like the fur was glued onto it. He's supposed to be like somewhat of the Messiah character, but something else now. I don't know, the Embrace Division, and I don't know what the character is. I think now it's just that he wears goofy looking clothing. I don't know what the character is. He's back to the Burn It Down music, and he has for about a month already. Since this guy came back, it just feels really disjointed. They threw him in a feud with Cesaro. The guy is a former world champion, multi-time champion, a guy who beat Lesnar. And now he's going to feud with a mid-carder like Cesaro, like a forever mid-carder, and then move on to Naca Murphy. And here we go again. Naca Murphy, he lost again. So this is the guy that they re-signed. Remember during that whole gauntlet thing? Oh, the reemergence of Naca Murphy. We're going to give him back his old theme song, and it's going to be, happy days again. It's never been happy days with Naca Murphy. This guy he's not over. He never will be over. And I don't know why they keep on, like I said, with these guys. Every single one of them. Rollins, Cesaro, Naca Murphy, everybody involved in this little love triangle. None of them are over. None of them are going to be over. It doesn't matter. Like, how many monikers are they going to give to Seth Rollins? Has anyone caught on to that? The Architect, Iowa's Own. You've got the Messiah, Embrace the Vision, the Kingslayer. I mean, Embrace the Vision. That's more of like a tagline, but that's what like comes up on his Titantron now. So I don't I don't really know like who, like what is he supposed to be right now, basically. Every single time he's doing a promo, he's just babbling on about nonsense, and here he's just, does anyone not see how comical that is? That he's screaming and getting angry about being swung around 22 times when just about everyone on the roster has taken a giant swing from Cesaro, and he's like super upset about it and super embarrassed by it. He's screaming about it like a complete goof, and that goofy, high-pitched voice of his, 22 swings. Like, are you joking? Like, am I supposed to be, like, terrified by the ruthlessness of Seth Rollins? I'm, like, laughing at him. And I'm pretty sure most people that are, like, not just big Seth Rollins marks, and I know there are people that love the guy, I guess that they're, like, really into this and think that the guy's showing some true emotion, some true grit in there. I guess they're the same people that really enjoyed Tony Khan's promo and that ridiculous lights out match that was on Dynamite. Those are the people that will get into this, I suppose. Then up next, we've got the no holds barred match between, we got Mel McIntyre, or Drew Gibson, I guess you could call him, because he's coming out in a Braveheart makeup, and Jesus Christ, this looked goofy as fuck. I don't know. I think I've seen people say, like, this cosplay shit is, like, fun and entertaining. Some people like it. You could also say, well, it gives Drew more personality. If anything, it makes him look like a fucking joke. Guy that looks like a Drew McIntyre does not need to be putting on face paint. That's, obviously taken straight out of a movie. And not even a current movie. It's a good movie. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's also random. I get it's supposed to be war paint. He's going to war with Sheamus. I mean, there you go. But I mean, seriously, I'm just thinking Mel Gibson through this whole thing is this match. I don't know how to feel about it. Like I had said, like, I would have no problem with these guys at Mania because I think it would have made for a good match. This was like, it was good, sort of, but I was expecting a bit more. I'm not really thrilled with guys just constantly hitting each other with kendo sticks. It was really cool when Steve Blackman did it, but I don't really like this. Like, this is like an established weapon now. It's almost like as established as a chair and a table and a ladder. I don't know how it got all mixed up in there with that, but like you never really saw a lot of people using kendo sticks after Steve Blackman left WWE. Kind of think about it. There were some instances like when Sandman came during the ECW thing, and there was a few other times, but somewhere in the PG era, they were like, let's, bring out the kendo stick. And yeah, they were actually laying that in pretty thick. You could see the welts. That does have a lot to do with the fact that they're fair skinned. But, they were doing pretty hard. There was some good looking punches in there. I just kind of was expecting a bit more. I did like when they went up near the screens with all the goofy faces. They also did an explosion, but before that, I liked the camera angle, as they were kind of inside. You saw sort of where Owens and Roman Reigns went up there when he threw him off the stage like a few months back before the Rumble. And you didn't really get like a good look, but here they kind of fouled them in. Sheamus, did a move to him while they were there. Then Drew pushed him through the screens, and we get like an electrical kind of crackling explosion, which still looked better than the Revolution one. I mean, I kind of feel like after the promo on Raw, I didn't mention that, but there was like a little dig from Drew McIntyre. He's denying that this was a reference to the Revolution failed explosion, the failed deathmatch explosion. We've talked about this at length. I reviewed the whole pay-per-view, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch my Revolution review. And if you want, you could even just fast forward it to the end when I review the Kenny Omega Jon Moxley match. And I kind of felt that that's what they were taking a dig at there. I'm like, okay, WWE like making fun of that stuff. It's just like that's just kind of lame at this point because they're a non-issue AEW. There's no point in even going after them. But if whatever it was, like, okay, I didn't mind that spot. They've done that before. Um, as far as I'm concerned, that should have been it after that. Like, I really hate when you have a big moment like that and then the match just kind of continues on. Sheamus did the white noise through the table. That I like how they did that. Um, then we finish it off. Drew hits a claymore after doing a double arm DDT. A future shock DDT onto a piece of the announce table. This, it was good. As you can see, there was parts that I liked, but like I said, I was expecting more. I would have liked it to be a bit more than them just kendo stick shots, relying so much on like weapons and stuff, and I don't think they really needed to do that. Like I would have liked to see them keep it a bit more near the ring. It would be different if they had already done that, but all we've seen from these guys so far is that ridiculous Raw match with the double, count out with the, no, it wasn't a count out. Basically, they stopped the match because of steel steps. That was ridiculous. So I was expecting a bit more. It's disappointing, and now they beat Sheamus, and I don't like, where does Sheamus go from here now? So now his feud is pretty much emphatically done. You can't really go anywhere from this point. You could have had a WrestleMania match and built it up. And, you see in the video package, there's a lot of history there. This goes back before the decade even started, of Sheamus, coming to the WWE in 2009. And, you could have had a great story here, but they failed to tell it. They did touch on it a little bit, but just not enough. And here, this is just a very unsatisfying way to end like what's supposed to be like a very brotherly feud, like a betrayal thing. But you didn't feel that betrayal. You didn't feel like when Chavo turned on Eddie Guerrero, you didn't feel like, or like the Rockers exploding, okay? You know what I mean? Like, we're talking about some more iconic moments there. But you could have had it because these two guys are great stars and I like them a lot. But, factor in creative, and I guess there's a lot of factors working against them. But this was just, it was disappointing. I thought it could have been better. It was still good. And the face paint, like I said, that was also something else that was just so goofy watching him. After a while, it washed off, and I was like, okay, but should have never even came out with that shit on his face. Alexa Bliss and Randy Orton in this weird, not really a match. But they did a good job with this. They did another fireball, another repeat, but Orton dropped down. He started bleeding black goo out of his mouth during his entrance. Which was interesting how they did it like during his entrance instead of just like during a promo. I liked the way how they made the light structure fall down, off the ceiling. That was actually really well done. I liked how they went about that. Fire came up like from the ring. They did like a tricky little camera shot there. And I really liked how they did the finish. All of a sudden you see like a burnt, crispy arm and hand coming out. And I gotta say, they made the Fiend look pretty good. I know it's really far-fetched, but if you're going to bring the Fiend back, they had him all burnt up. The mask was all messed up. The gloves were all torn up. His arms were like all burnt and like, you could see the lacerations all over him. And I think like if you're going to have like makeup and whatever it was, like it was prosthetic stuff, it actually looked pretty decent. So he gives his sister Abigail to Orton. Bliss gets on top and gets the pin, which I was kind of a little bit surprised that they would do a visible pin on Orton. I guess Orton just really doesn't give a fuck at this point, but, I didn't really mind it too much. But I did like how the Fiend looked here. That was pretty much the highlight for me. I was like, I liked this whole burnt up. I just can't believe that like one of their best guys, they just kept them at home for 3 months. And I get that they're trying to like build his return. But like, would it have mattered to anyone if you just returned, like, say at the Royal Rumble, like they waited a month? Instead, you made us wait a few more months, and there's nothing like there wasn't anything that great or substantial that they did during that period of time. We just had, a fireball thrown, Orton wearing a ridiculous looking mask that he took off the very next week. I mean, there was nothing else that happened really during this period of time. But now he returned, and okay, great. So we're obviously going to get a Mania match. A lot of people are saying it's probably going to be a Firefly Funhouse. I would say that's probably the way they're going to go with it. I hope it's as good as the Cena one. I don't really think they have as much material that they could go for that one, but we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, a good makeup and appearance and return, and I like the stuff and the tomfoolery with Bliss and the light fixture falling down, all that was pretty good. So let's move on to the main event, which I did not like. And, I think some people say, well, Brad, you like Daniel Bryan, so what did you have here? They made Bryan look strong. Well, they made Bryan look a little too strong here. I'm going to be quite honest. I've said this. I don't like the way they're portraying Bryan. This is probably the worst iteration I've seen of Daniel Bryan in quite some time. Like, the fact that they actually started this off decently, where Bryan was trying to like kind of out wrestling Reigns a little bit in the testing out, opening minutes of the match, and I was kind of fine with that because I'm like, yeah, he's quicker than Reigns, so he's kind of gonna have a hard time grabbing him and stuff. But then all of a sudden, you had Reigns dominating. I'm like, oh, well, this is pretty believable here. This is the way how it should be. And then Bryan was getting in some hope spots and, hitting some moves every now and again. I was like, okay, if the match keeps going like this, and then they might have like a moment where it looks like Bryan's going to win, but then in the end, Reigns just finishes him off. I'm like, I'll be fine with that. So I'm enjoying it. And then we're getting like, Bryan then just all of a sudden starts taking control, and he just starts trapping him. He trapped him in the yes lock like 3 times. And then we get a spear, and he pins Bryan, and it should be over there because there was a ref bump and everything. Edge slides into the ring, and Bryan kicks out. And there wasn't really even much of a delay there. I know they had Corey Graves try to cover and say, oh, there was a 6 count before Edge slid in. No, but like it was still too quick. Then Bryan somehow manages to get him into the yes lock. He manages to get out of it again, and then he puts him back in. And then we see Uso comes in. Jay comes in, slides in. He stops Bryan, and then we've got Edge then fighting with Jay, and then we get Bryan trapping him in the yes lock for the 3rd time, and we see a visible tap out from Reigns. And I'm like, are you serious? This is the guy where they make him look super vulnerable? Like, this is not a good look. He's supposed to be the tribal chief. He beat down his cousin. We're all taking this guy seriously, saying, oh, wow, they really got something going here with Reigns. Finally, they're trying to give this guy some sort of a character, and it looks good. Even the marks are admitting it's good. And, now they've kind of lost credibility because now they're still saying that it's good, even though it's actually really terrible now on SmackDown with the way they're going with this character, because it's the same thing every week. And then you get shit like this where they're making Reigns look pretty damn weak and making him look vulnerable, and he's supposed to be this big mobster boss, and here he is tapping out to a guy that he has a pretty, considerable size advantage over. I mean, he's way more built than Bryan. He's got the height advantage. He outweighs him, so there's no excuse for the way they're booking this to make Bryan look kind of dominant here at the end. Edge saves the day, because there was an accidental chair shot with Bryan to Edge. Edge gets the payback, hits them both with chairs, and then Roman just kind of gets on top of him for like what's really like a very unsatisfying finish, because you're seeing all these different exchanges that look like it could end the match, and then the chair shot also really wasn't like even the best. Like that didn't even seem like a match-ending chair shot. And he just kind of climbs on top of him, and you've got like Reigns. Reigns has to like just kind of sneak out a win on Bryan in the end. Like that was not a good look, especially going into a big high-profile match with Daniel Bryan. I mean, I gotta say, even with a champion like JBL, where he would just kind of get a win, and get lucky. Even he was booked way stronger looking than Roman Reigns. Go back, and I've watched some of those 2004 pay-per-views, and I might review them here on this channel. I know people want to see those reviews, so I will try to do more of those. But I have some other things planned for this channel, so I might not get to them just yet. But they made JBL look strong while still having that like chicken shit heel gimmick. But Roman's not even supposed to have that gimmick. He's supposed to be a strong, dominant champion, mobster boss. And for some reason, like they should have never brought Bryan into this storyline. They're making that Edge is getting super frustrated because he says, "This is mine." He doesn't want Bryan a part of this. But now it's done. And I have to ask, I know they're not going to do this. They're probably going to make it a triple threat, especially after this finish. But why are they going to ruin what, would have been a really good match at Mania? Edge and Roman Reigns, spear versus spear. The best worker from the current era, arguably. But I would say, Roman Reigns, the only one with some sort of credibility to his name, because no one else really has. There's no other stars. Reigns is the only one they've really given an opportunity to grow into one. And you could see that, like, he's done interviews and videos with GQ and everything. So, the entertainment world sees Roman Reigns as a star too. So that's very positive for someone like Reigns. Remember when they said they're not going to have any more Rocks, or Hulk Hogan's. They're not going to have any big Hollywood-worthy stars. Which is the reason why you see the people at the top, why you saw Seth Rollins as champion for years on end leading up to this point. So, now you're going to basically try to ruin that as much as possible, and now you're just going to throw Bryan in there. And like I said, I like Bryan. He's a good wrestler. Seems like a nice guy. He's actually capable of a lot of good promo work. He's not doing it lately, but he was doing it at the beginning of 2019, late 2018, when he was doing that eco gimmick, that SJW gimmick, that environmentalist gimmick, but they threw that out the window. And here we are. We're left what we have now. Just a really like sarcastic, sort of hyper Bryan, which I'm not really liking at all. And this, again, like this is just a match that was all unappealing. This whole show was just fucking horrible. All of it. This is not the way that they should be building Mania. I mean, their characters, like you look at this, and they really just destroyed everybody on this show. Everyone looked fucking lousy as hell. Even Edge just kind of getting like, just kind of having a hissy fit leaving the ring. This is not a good look for anyone on this show. The only one that looked good really was, I guess you could say, yeah, Drew looked good, getting his win. They made, Sheamus just look like a loser, basically, just kind of losing emphatically there. And you had, Bray look good, finally, bringing him back, and, they had some consistency there with him being all burnt up, but, yeah, there you go. It was a terrible show, guys. Let me know what you thought down in the comments down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the bell so you get all notifications when I post all my new videos. I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. And thanks again for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.